So on today's episode, we want to talk about one of our favorite topics, or actually one of our favorite books, is influence. And you've probably heard David and I talk about this book. It's called The Psychology of Influence by Robert Cialdini. We've referenced this book a number of times in the past, David, when we've been talking. But it's The Psychology of Persuasion, and this book is like the staple of anybody that's in marketing and really wants to get a grasp of how human psychology works and how that plays into marketing and understanding how human action takes place and making buying decisions. It's a good book to start with.
Oh, it's huge. I remember when I first got a hold of it, and I still have my original copy. It's probably 13 years old now.
Right.
But it was just interesting. And this is not a book that you actually, first of all, it's pretty thick. It's not a book you actually just sit down and read, like cover to cover. It's it's not a boring read.
No.
But it's like a textbook.
Right.
Lots of case studies.
Lots of case studies.
So that's good. But I'll tell you what, I'm going to spoil it for you. If anybody listening ever becomes a client, they get a copy of this in the mail from me.
Yeah.
I mail this to every single client that I get.
You should share that because you send that out to clients.
I sent one out last week.
Amazon.
I love it.
Next day too.
Next day, yeah. I sent one. I sent 2 books out last week. Actually, it was a husband and a wife that own a business.
Yep.
Down in Florida, and I sent the gentleman this book, and I love Amazon because there's a lot of times in business that you're supposed to do certain things. Like, say, everybody knows thank you cards work.
Yep.
But you still actually got to do something.
Right.
You still actually got to do it. And some people just drop the ball. Like,
Yep.
a lot of us have dropped the ball. But what I like about Amazon is I can go type it in, hit add a cart.
Yep.
I check mark the little, is this a gift? And then I have it gift wrapped. They gift wrapped it for me.
Right.
And they also, I can include a personal note.
Right.
And I always send it the next day as soon as I cash their check. That's what I do. It's just like boom.
So they get it that next day.
Yeah.
Get that top of mind.
Not even expecting it, and they get in the mail. And everybody loves that Amazon package in the mail. And then everybody likes that Christmas feeling.
Yeah.
So they're opening up a gift that's not on their birthday. It's not Christmas.
Right.
And they're like, what is this? So anyway, if you ever become a client, I'm going to spoil it for you because this book
That's
is
what you're going to get in the mail.
of all the books that have made me money, this is the book or whatever. Just a phenomenal book. So what we want to do today is basically just go through. We're going to pick 3. I think we're going to break this up into 2 episodes.
Right.
Or we're probably going to pick 3 of these that we're going to go through and just talk a little bit about some stories that we know and how we've seen these things in action and go from there. I'll tell you, I've made a whole career on Chapter 4. Entire career, Chapter 4. It's called Social Proof.
Social Proof.
Truths are us, or whatever. And so we'll talk about that. So what's the first one we're going to do?
So we're going to cover reciprocity, the rule of reciprocity. We'll cover social proof, and then we'll cover, Authority. Yeah,
okay.
We'll cover those 3 this week. And these are in no particular order. If you go through the book, I think reciprocity, that he starts off with an introduction and then gets into reciprocity, but you don't have to read these in any particular order to gain some enormous value from them. But, reciprocity, if we start with that, it is the law of reciprocity, and he used a lot of case studies in this chapter, but it's just basically it's giving without really, the way I think of it, you read through the chapter, but it's giving something with really no expectations of anything in return, but just doing it. But the amazing thing that happens from that is that people do, in fact, come back psychologically from almost an obligation standpoint, and either do business with you or follow that up with some kind of offering on their own out of just almost an obligation or a need.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. It's extremely powerful. Again, what I like about this book is it's not just, it's literally like a textbook.
Right.
And it just gives case study after case study.
Yep.
It talks about, I don't really like this example, but it's kind of, it happens every day. It happens every day in business, but it's talking about a politician,
right.
how a lot of people, I can't remember the guy's name that they were talking about, but some of the people that even opposed this congressman still voted for him because of all the favors he had done for everybody. And that's the power of reciprocity right there.
You see that happen all the time in politics. People, they bring all these subsidies back to their districts, and people just keep putting. We were actually talking. Dave and I were actually discussing a little politics before the podcast.
He's like I don't even study it at all, and so any glimpse I get, a little bit of Phil Valentine here in Nashville, and then Jonathan Taylor every now and then, just a little glimpse of politics or whatever. But
that just bringing those farm subsidies, like in people like these farm towns, for example, they bring home. They talk about the word in politics is bring home the bacon, back to the local areas, and people in return just keep putting those same guys, regardless of what whether what their politics or how good of a job they're really doing. As long as they're bringing home that money to their district, people love them and they put them in. So it's kind of using that whole psychology of reciprocity that hey, you do something for me, so I feel obligated to give back, to almost do that. And so, how do you apply this in marketing your business, or marketing whether you've got an online business or whether you're an offline business doing consultation like what we talk about, is to do exactly. I mean, you talk about sending out the gift, and you kind of flip it around where you send you send a copy of the Psychology of Influence out to somebody that does business with you as a thank you. But there's a lot of times where we will send something out to somebody that just out of sheer whether they're not a client or not.
Well, let me give you an example of what I'm going to teach a client to do. That I feel like this is going to tip. Well, you don't know until you try things. You try to use basic, general, proven marketing principles, but it's an art and it's a science. Yeah. And as this one book states, people are predictably irrational. So sometimes you just don't know.
Another great book.
Yeah, bottom line, But so I'm helping this new client, same client I just bought a book for last week.
Right.
I'm helping publish, write his own book. So one of the things that we're going to do is I'm going to, after he has the book, when he goes on a sales appointment with a high-level prospect, I'm going to get him to mail his own book from Amazon as a gift before he shows up to the meeting.
Right.
So, I'm going to have, say it's 4 days prior or something like that, have him overnight the book to him. And so when he comes in, you've got reciprocity. Okay, they're more likely to keep the appointment. They're more likely to give him more time. Even if they weren't as open, now they're going to be more open because they're like, well, dang, he just spent money on me. So he's going to feel obligated. And then the last thing, actually, and we'll talk about this today, is authority.
Yeah.
Is to show him authority. He wrote the book on it.
Yeah, he wrote the book.
So that's authority. So you've got a lot of psychological principles playing in on that. So think about ways that you can actually provide that for someone. And I think it's a balance. I'll just be real honest. I don't know. You can't do everything in your life selfish. We're all selfish to one. I mean, we just are. We're all selfish to some extent. And so it's but you can't
think of ways that don't require your time that you can give, kind of make it reciprocal, but don't require you to. I don't know if that's where you're going.
Well, I'm more thinking without always trying to get something.
Oh, yeah.
Sometimes you can pick those people out. You know that they only contact you if they want something.
Right.
But those are really obvious. But I don't know. I don't know what the balance is, but I don't know. It's you just try to strike a balance, I think, when you use reciprocity. Do some things just not even trying. The power of reciprocity will still come into play, but, you don't do it for that. It's strictly, hey, I don't want anything from you. Yeah. This is just what I want. But sometimes I feel and I try to implement in my business and my clients' businesses, I try to get them to orchestrate this, to manufacture it. What can you do to do that? Like sending that book beforehand and that type of thing.
Right.
What can you do? So,
well, I mean, and I think if we stopped it, like if we stopped if we stop the recording right here, that tip on the Amazon, if you publish your book even through CreateSpace and list it on Amazon, the ability to basically use Amazon as a way to package your book, have them send it overnight to a client is really, I mean, that's cool because you can have them gift wrapped. I mean, have it really nicely wrapped and delivered next day through Amazon and make a super impression. That tips. I mean, you told me that last week, and I was like, dude, that's cool. You know, doing that for clients that.
I mean, it takes 5 minutes, if that.
Click, click, click.
Yeah, I mean, it's just boom. I mean, it's nothing at all, and you know.
And that gets delivered what, UPS overnight or?
I don't know.
UPS next day or.
Yeah, that's a good question. The crazy thing is, Amazon, they have fulfillment centers. Everywhere.
Everywhere. Yeah.
I found out they had one in Chattanooga. I know they got one in Murfreesboro. I think they were talking about building 2 or something around here, and.
That huge one over in Murfreesboro.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, that's I drove by it the other day. So anyway, let's move on to the next one. But that's reciprocity. You want to think about, again, read the chapter. This book, you know, I wouldn't mail it out to clients. I gave away like 60 books to Goodwill the other day.
Right.
Actually, so my library is ridiculous, and 60 is doesn't even touch my collection or whatever. But of all the books, this is the one I sent out. By the way, you know what my second one would be if I had to choose? Of all the books, what do you think I would send out?
Oh man, I'm thinking because I'm pretty much, I've heard so many books. Your book. That's a good question. Some of my books, that's a great point. Like some of my books have been more generic. Like I'm not going to send my Florida guy my book because it was he lives in my book. My latest one's about Nashville. Yeah. It applies to anybody, but my next marketing book that I would probably send out. But the other one that I would send out that's not mine is How to Pitch Anything But Wearing Cloth. Oh, okay, very good, very good.
That book is the second biggest book that's made me a lot of money. The next one we wanted to talk about today is Social Proof.
Social Proof, yes.
This is actually my favorite one because I was eating peanut butter and ramen noodles years ago, and sometimes I still do. And now eating peanut butter and ramen noodles because I was so poor by choice. This is like in my early 20s. Yeah. I could have got a job at making $50,000 a year as a sales rep. But I want to start my own business, and but it was a struggle when I started and that type of thing. So it was kind of, wasn't sure how to do it. But I was in my early 20s, and I was trying to get other people to hire me for a consultant and that type of thing. Yep. But I was like young. I didn't have an Ivy League degree. Right. I didn't have a MBA from Georgia Tech or whatever. So one of the things I did was once I did a job for somebody, I got a testimonial from them.
Absolutely.
Hey, David did a great job for me, blah, 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 whatever. Yep. Okay. And that's how it started. Well, then it started snowballing. I get more and more, and then it got easier. And then when I read Influence, Social Proof is another way we call it is like the bandwagon effect. Yeah. And people will jump on the bandwagon. You hear a lot about that in sports or something, you know, like
the lemming effect, or that people just follow the crowd. Yeah, people are naturally crowd followers. I mean, absolutely, they follow what other people do. I mean,
and
Facebook is a great example.
Oh man,
just like Facebook, they experiment with all of this stuff in this book psychologically all the time, and people don't realize it, but it's that's another topic.
Oh yeah. Well, I liked Social Proof because in business, what you can do is use it. You can use it in so many different ways, and it doesn't cost anything. Yeah, that's the cool thing. Like I was poor when I started this, so that's why I liked it so much. And then I realized how powerful it was, and still is really fundamental in all my clients' businesses. Yep. So you can use it with testimonials. So basically showing that your product or service actually works and helps, benefits people. The more, the better. Yep. Having them in different versions, audio, video, text. What else? You hear about.
You can do you mentioned something great. Video today, everybody's got a smartphone, video camera. So if you don't have time to get a written testimonial, you can literally, with a little editing, you can ask your client questions like, "Why'd you do business with me?" I mean, like, while you're holding the camera up, and you can edit that part out.
Yeah,
you can clip it and trim it and make it sound awesome without you asking the questions. But literally, just stand there, ask them a series of questions. Why'd you do business with me? What was the biggest benefit you got out of doing business with me? And so forth, and just easy right there, right then and there.
Absolutely, and that's you can apply that. It doesn't cost you any money. You'll see stuff like over 1 million in print.
Oh, yes.
Like on a book or a magazine or something like that.
60 billion sold. Or
60
billion.
Oh, the hamburgers. Yeah, McDonald's. Yeah. So that basically is saying, in another way, is a lot of people trust us, for their whatever it is you're selling.
Right.
Best-selling is another way to say that. That means a lot of people are obviously buying ABC product or service.
One of the things David and I have been talking about recently, and in some of your discussions, and we'll just let you guys in on it, is just talking about kind of going back and forth on what a lot of people are doing nowadays is using a lot of the as seen on, and and that's very effective, but a lot of people can. I mean, you can stretch that.
Well, I think we should save that for authority.
Yeah. Okay. We'll say. Okay.
Because that's more authority.
It is. Right.
Than like social proof or whatever of people buying.
Well, that's true. Yeah. Because.
But
you're right.
We'll definitely talk about that.
But going back to testimonials. Having testimonials on your website. One of the things I used to do, talking about the video camera, asking a series of questions. One of the things I used to do, and still do to this day, is instead of asking somebody to give me a testimonial, having them try to think of something, literally just sending them out, and you've done this too, I know, a questionnaire that just lets them, and basically it helps them stay on track with exactly what they need to give and what they need to say.
Because a lot of people struggle with that. They have no idea.
They really do. You sit down, they sit down with a blank piece of paper, and they're like, they will sit there forever trying to think of something to write down because they're just not used to it.
I'll tell you one other little thing. I haven't done it, but I'm not opposed to doing it. I just haven't done it yet. I think I will in the future. Is if somebody's really busy, you can even ask, can I write it, and then you sign it.
Yep.
Some people have done that.
Absolutely.
And I don't think there's anything wrong with it. Just you send it over to the person.
As long as they approve it.
Yeah.
Absolutely. As long as they approve it.
That way, it helps them. So usually with busy people, that will work. Work better.
And it's usually good to give them like 3 versions, just so they don't feel like at least 2 or 3 versions, so they don't feel like you're trying to give them only one choice, but like maybe lay out 3 different versions of a testimonial and say, would you choose which one reflects your opinion the best? And if you like, whichever one you like the best, and sign off if you agree one of these is the best.
Yeah.
So,
one of the things I was thinking about too, something that you said that triggered it is, you can have different types of social proof.
Yeah.
But also like having like the levels. So like for instance, if they're a recognized source, like somebody credible in the industry. That really helps too. Yep. So instead of just having John and Jane Doe endorse you, having the president of the Chamber of Commerce endorse you.
Yeah,
or whatever,
absolutely.
Or the president of this association or whatever.
Right.
And so that holds more weight. Or having a certain brands.
Yeah.
So that's a social proof play. Yeah. Like, so, if you want Fortune 500 companies to hire you, or Fortune 100 companies hire you, try to get testimonials from Fortune 100 and Fortune 500. That's social proof. Birds of a feather flock together.
Absolutely.
So
I was thinking of that statement earlier. Birds of a feather flock together earlier. That's it's so true though.
It really is.
I mean, think of a high school. This is a perfect example of peer groups in high school. You think back to the peer pressure in high school, and people generally follow the crowd, whatever somebody's doing, or you think of popular trends like that have taken place, and people naturally gravitate to those trends, not because they they think in and of itself that that's the coolest thing to do, but because so many other people are doing it.
Well, we mentioned Amazon a few minutes ago. Think about their review system.
Yep.
How many stars does a book have?
Right.
or product have.
Yep.
I just ordered several, digital or several electronic products.
Mm-hmm.
I bought a digital antenna,
Right.
and then bought a couple iPhone microphones,
Right.
all that
Right.
stuff. And, I wanted to know if it was actually legit or not.
Yeah.
And this one digital antenna had like over 3,000 reviews. Literally
man.
3,000.
Oh yeah.
The Leaf, and
So that was an easy selection.
yeah, and it was over 4 stars
Right.
out of 3,000 reviews.
Mm-hmm.
So although there were some negative ones, 99% of them
Right.
4 out of 5. Gave them
Right.
4 or 5 stars, whatever. So that's just another example. That's how Amazon does it.
Sure.
But think about ways that you can actually basically show that other people are buying your product or service.
Exactly.
How can you do that?
Mm-hmm.
And then show different types of people.
Yep.
So, black people, white people, fat people,
Yeah.
skinny people,
Yep.
like everything.
Yep.
Show people, this is powerful. Take the top 5 or 10 objections you get.
Mm-hmm. Very
Price, time,
Yep.
whatever it is on your product. Take that and find and place testimonials,
Mm-hmm.
like have, a frequently asked questions or whatever.
Yep.
Or a part of your sales letter or something like that with the objections in there, and then have a testimonial underneath come flipping that. That's all testimonials
Boom, yeah.
are objections.
Right.
Like the opposite of objections.
Yeah.
That's all they are. So those are just some ideas that you can do.
And those testimonials that answer what you're saying, each one of those testimonials answers an objection.
Mm-hmm.
That's even more powerful than just having a statement that answers that question, but having one of your
Yeah.
clients, people that do business with you, answer that.
Absolutely. Well, cool. What's the net? This one, I love all these, to be honest with you. I like I said, chapter 4, the social proof,
Yeah.
we just covered, is, I would say, my favorite.
Yeah.
This is what we're about to talk about. Authority is actually my second favorite.
Mm-hmm.
And so let's talk about that. So
Okay.
describe what the authority chapter is talking about.
Basically, and I wish I hadn't used basically, because I hate that word.
Hey, what?
Basically, I just used basically. But I would say, the authority chapter is people do business with those that are associated with people who have influence, or that in their mind has a position of authority. So going back to people in politics, and I hate to use politics because I don't like many people in politics, but naturally, if your senator comes to town, they'll command a pretty big following. They'll have people around him, and he'll be out there greeting and everything. Well, if you talk to somebody that naturally is, I work for Senator so-and-so, naturally people are like, oh, that's very cool. Like just by association.
Association.
A lot of times,
Yeah.
that authority brings them recognition.
I love it. Again, this is my second favorite
Yeah.
thing, because it's stuff like this.
Yeah.
I think it's just so, I think it's ridiculous, but like the Bible says that man looks on the outward and God looks on the heart.
Yep.
I know
So
some
human
people listen to this.
condition-
Yeah, it's not going to change.
No,
like
yeah.
humans are humans.
Right.
And I think it's ridiculous. It's sad. We should look on the heart or whatever, but we don't.
Right.
We typically look. And so, yeah, people will say, oh, you're associated with Senator John Doe.
Right.
Then
Absolutely.
it's going to give you instant credibility and authority,
Absolutely.
influence over that.
It's why I get double my meetup attendance when I put him on the speaking list. When
Very
he comes to
authoritative.
town.
I'm very authoritative. So, we always do have a good turnout.
Oh yeah. David always brings a nice pool, but it's just associating with people who, you think of. We use politicians. And these don't have to be high-profile celebrities. You've associated with Christy Frank off The Apprentice.
Oh, I benefited from that for years.
Yep.
Yeah, just having
And
her
using
endorse
that,
it.
that's powerful. And not only just having that, it's a lot of times it's not the initial association that benefits you. It's not the initial. It's funny. We can talk about getting on Good Morning America or getting on. The View or Dr. Oz being, just a very powerful, and you and I both have clients that use local, local talk shows or things to build their celebrity status. But what the funny thing is, David, it's not just being on that show initially that, people think naturally you go on, not Oprah anymore, but you go on Dr. Oz if you've got something health related, and automatically you're going to sell 1 million books or 1,000 or 100,000 books off of that. Well, the benefit isn't always initially right off of that segment, after that segment airs, but how you're able to take that episode and use that time and time again in your marketing as featured on Dr. Oz or as featured on
I use that right now.
Exactly.
With my doctor client that I've talked about in numerous episodes. He was actually featured on Dr. Oz.
Yep.
And we have it in our autoresponder.
Right.
I got the video of it, of him and Dr. Oz talking, and I have it in the email. There's lightning bugs actually in our studio.
I was like, man, I hope that's not a...
no, it's a lightning bug in our actual recording studio, state-of-the-art studio. And so I actually have that in there. And so it's like the headline I have on the email says, like, the eye trick I taught Dr. Oz.
Oh, man. See?
Very
powerful.
You're teaching Dr. Oz something?
Yeah,
like, what the crap is that? Like,
And that's a powerful headline right there.
Yeah.
Teaching Dr. Oz, what I taught Dr. Oz. That's pretty incredible. But it's like that, using that over and over. How many times is your client going to be able to use that? I mean, as many times as he wants to in that marketing campaign, he's going to be using Dr. Oz as often as you need to. I mean, to build familiarity. I mean, as long as Dr. Oz is still a celebrity name,
Our buddy Tim says this like really good. I've never heard anybody say it like this. Like he says this a lot. What you're doing is transferring your influence to somebody.
Right.
So like just by being featured on Dr. Oz, even though Dr. Oz didn't endorse my client directly, he didn't say you need to go to this doctor, but the fact that he's on the show is basically saying, okay, like this guy is actually legit.
Exactly.
So Dr. Oz's influence that he spent millions of dollars, him and his team developing, transferred to my client one time, and we use it over and over.
Right.
Me working with Christy Frank from The Apprentice show years ago, one time, benefited for years to selling that book.
Yep, absolutely. One of my clients was able to get a one-on-one he was one of 10 other people that got a kind of a full day intensive, 1 day intensive with Brandon Bouchard, like a month ago.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Just being able to brainstorm or share their ideas. And one of the things he got out of that was like he shared some pictures, like he got a picture with Brendan and some of the other people, but just being able to use that, just even it doesn't have to be like, it could be like a photo of you with somebody, a celebrity, in part of your promotional campaign, as part of your
that's authority, even though it might not have anything to do. It's not like you're our best buds or anything, but people like translate that. It's kind of like the I keep thinking Maslow, the hierarchy of needs. That's not what I'm thinking about. Survival of the fittest. That's what I'm thinking about. Who's the dude? Darwin. Okay. All right, so like survival of the fittest, people are intentionally trying to gravitate towards the person that they think can get them to the result that they want, the goal that they want, or whatever. And so if you can find people to actually help, the more authority you can show, the easier it is to influence them and make their decision.
And one of the things, in addition to, while we're talking about publishing a book, is just getting that, adding to that authority is having somebody that's a celebrity or somebody that's well known to write a forward or put like a really glowing testimonial of your book. And Tim and I on that Selling on the Green, one of the things when we were publishing the book, on golf and relationships, we wanted somebody that had authority celebrity status. So we're trying to think who the best person was, and so we thought you actually
Thanks for giving me credit on this.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm all about some credit. Ain't gonna lie. I ain't gonna turn it down.
We were all talking, and David said, because Tim buys a whole lot of stuff. He's on their LMX club. So
Loudmouth Golf.
The Loudmouth Golf. So David says, what about contacting, getting in touch with the owner, the CEO? And I was like, man, that's so good. And you're like working out a deal with him, like for promoting books. And we're actually still, he's given us some, he's going to be sponsoring us, hopefully, as we do a podcast, but he's also, we've got some affiliate deals worked out with them for some of their merchandise. So we've got some other ways that we're going to be able to make some money, off of selling through them. And but I asked him just point blank, based off of one of David's recommendations, like I just emailed him. I was going to call him, but I said, you know what, before I try to call him, I'm just going to send him an email. I found his email, sent him out an email, and said, hey, would you be willing to write us a foreword for our upcoming book, Selling on the Green? Here's what it's about. Just kind of explained it to him. Dude, he wrote back like 5 minutes. 5 minutes later, I had a reply back from the guy, said, love to. So, just people are always willing to help more than you think, unless you actually try and reach out to them, you never know. So.
Oh yeah. That's a powerful thing. Now that is authority and social proof.
Yeah.
Right there.
All in one. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, you mentioned something earlier. We were talking about, Jonathan's in Knoxville, and there's a guy, the real estate guy. That's celebrity, because we were literally just talking about that.
Yep.
He's got a local real estate guy that goes to his meetup in Knoxville that is really successful, has his own radio show. He's a real estate investor.
Victor Jernigan. He listens to the podcast. So.
Yeah, Victor, we're giving you props over here, man. And so now I don't know this guy. Now he's been going to Jonathan's meetups and all that stuff for years.
Yep.
But he was talking about how he charges for his meetup. Now a lot of times the meetups, you can't charge a lot typically.
Yeah.
I mean, they're just people aren't. It's just, I guess most of them are free, and so not willing to pay.
Right.
But Victor is charging $20 and $50 or $500 a year.
Yep.
And he's got 200 and something members.
Mm-hmm.
And so I thought that was really fascinating, because that's not even. I mean, it's not like he's in his own universe or whatever, and that, because nobody usually gets that or whatever.
Right.
So I can almost guarantee it. I don't know this, but maybe Victor can comment. But I wonder it's because of the authority and the celebrity of having the radio show.
Yeah, the radio show.
Which, by the way, gives you authority. Yeah. That's another authority play, because how many people have a radio show? Mm-hmm. If you're speaking on a topic continuously, you must be the expert.
Right.
So they know about him. They hear about him. It gets some celebrity.
Yep. They have a show, Fix It or Flip It, every Saturday morning. You can tune in locally for an hour or two, but they've been running that show for 3 or 4 years now, so it's doing well, or they wouldn't still be doing the show.
So that's I thought that was we were literally just talking about that off camera, and I thought that was just a brilliant, a brilliant thing.
Yeah.
Some of the other, I'm trying to think of any other examples of authority that have really, the book can be really devastating. Like once, we're trying to do them with realtors, locally in certain areas of, how to sell your home fast, and for top price in Brentwood, Tennessee. And so there's a million freaking realtors out there.
Well, listen, here's a prime example of, if you're we talk about Dave Ramsey sometimes. If you're an endorsed local provider, or if you're somebody that Dave recommends as this guy knows how to sell real estate, then, that's obviously, that's going to help right there. Being an endorsed local provider, or being somebody that Dave Ramsey endorses or recommends as the guy to go to, then obviously, that's authority status right there, because you're linked to Dave Ramsey as somebody he says, this is the guy that sells a lot of homes, and he's the guy that I recommend.
Transfer of influence, authority.
Yep.
The people that are sold on Dave Ramsey and his and his teachings and his philosophy won't even question.
Right.
Pretty much won't even question the people.
Exactly.
I'll give you another example of authority that has worked. I love case studies and stuff. is the divorce course in Texas. That's the one for years.
Yep.
Where these three people get together and speak. Now I realize they have different speakers now.
Right.
But basically they have like a divorce person, a financial person, and a counselor get together, and they speak for 3 hours for free, no pitching or anything.
No pitching.
But who do you think these people end up going with for their help afterwards?
Well, the guy, right?
Yeah, that expert that's talking about psychology or finance or whatever.
Yeah.
That's just another example because speakers. Dave, I got this from David Fry, and I use this in my workshops. I would say, who's the most important person in the room? I say this like when I speak, and
me.
Yeah, a lot of times they'll say like, I am, they'll say the person, themselves or
the guy
whatever.
at the front.
But it's actually, you're right. It's the guy at the front because they're coming to hear you speak.
Absolutely.
And so you think about all that credibility and all that authority speaking on a topic. So those are just several ways to display authority.
That's why you and I have both always been fans of Meetup, because when we speak at meetups or when we're the key feature, we've spoke at different events, whether it's been at our own meetup groups or like speaking at different, organizations or functions, when you're the guy on stage, who do people want to talk to after? There's always like a line of people, and they're always wanting to talk to the guy that just spoke.
Right.
I need to ask you a question. And there's usually, I know whenever I do a meetup presentation locally, there'll always be like 3 or 4 people, and my wife always complains that I always get home at like 10:30 or 11 o'clock, and it's because, afterward people want to talk, and people want to ask questions and follow up and share what they're doing, and you feel almost obligated sometimes, but there's only so much time. But when you're the guy up there speaking, or you're the guy putting it on, you're right. You are the most important person in the room.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So these are all examples. Now, what I love about this is the psychology of influence is the fact that it's in every single human being.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I always say, if you'll actually like study this stuff and get good at this, human beings have the visas. So like if you get good at influencing, human beings, you're going to get the visa.
Absolutely.
And now you can use this, examples of influence in a negative way is somebody like Hitler or Jim Jones back in the 80s or 70s or 80s
or a used car salesman.
They've used that. Yeah, they've used some of those tricks or whatever, like old school stuff or whatever.
But you can also use this if you're going onto the lot of a used car salesman to understand.
Absolutely.
Defend yourself against those tactics.
Well, you can see. I'll tell you, I love actually being sold to. I don't meet a lot of good salespeople, but I like when I meet one. I'm like, dude, I enjoy the process of being sold to.
Yep.
A lot of times, people from neighborhood, people knocking on the doors, like a lot of times in the spring or summer, the lawn people come.
Oh, yeah.
And they use the social proof of, hey, we do several of your neighbors' yards.
I love that example, too. On a small scale, that's perfect.
Absolutely, because it's in your community. It's John and Jane Doe, the people you hang out with and stuff,
Yep.
So those are, examples of authority and social proof and
the easiest clients to ever close, and if you have trouble closing people that you've gotten referrals from other people, there's a real problem. Yeah. But if you've gotten a referral from somebody, you should have no problem getting that business. If somebody calls you as a result of somebody else recommending you and they actually call, you should have like a 99.9% close rate on that, because they're already been pre-sold by somebody that they trust.
Yeah.
And that's, in your favor, and that's going back to that social proof. Birds of a feather flock together. They're going to follow what their friends who they value, well over some stranger that they don't know. You may not even have the same credentials that this guy has, but sometimes that's the power of social proof.
Oh yeah. Well, it's interesting. I don't want to drop names or anything, but I will tell you, I have a really good former client who sent me 2 referrals. Yeah. I don't want to drop the names, but like 2 huge referrals. They're all very, very successful. I will tell you, the latest one, is spending 5 figures.
Yeah.
5 figures with me. And so it's, and it took one 20-minute phone call and about 3 emails.
Right.
And so that's all because
they were almost there.
An equal, they're almost there already because they saw one of my clients' books and they're like, wow, that's really good, it's really high quality, that type of thing, and that's what I want.
Yeah, absolutely. So, if you take this book, again, if you're new and if you're getting started in business, whether it's an online or if you're doing consulting or if you're creating an online business, even in the online world, this applies. If you have a website, and if you're creating passive income online, same principles apply. If you haven't read this book, we would recommend you going to Amazon and ordering a copy. Or if you do business with David, he'll just send you a free copy.
Yeah, all you got to do is just spend a bunch of money with me, and I'm happy to send you this $14 book. I'm totally happy to do that.
Exactly.
No, but in all honesty, if I was starting over, this is the book that I would start out with because you got to do business with a human being, and this is how you influence them for the good.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, you can totally use this for the bad or the good. I mean, it's totally up to you. It's your call, and it just flat out works. There's just no fans or buts about it. So this was a fun podcast. It's one of my favorite subjects to talk about.
Oh yeah, we could talk about this all day, and just because in examples in our own lives. And we'll follow up on the last 4 on our next podcast that David and I do. We'll cover the last 4 because there's some other interesting ones like commitment and consistency, which is fascinating. That wasn't necessarily my favorite chapter, but it was to me it was one of the most fascinating into how committed people, how you start to realize how people can follow a guy like Hitler and how people can vote for some of the people they vote for just because they're so committed no matter what. Yeah. But it's, one of the most striking cases, and this is on the negative side, but one of the most fascinating or the most striking cases was with Hitler, how people followed him to the very end just because of that, related to that commitment and consistency. And you start to see how that plays out in not only in cases like that, but also in cases of marketing where people just follow someone to the very end, so
one last thing, I just saw this or whatever, but right there on the cover, this is national bestseller.
Oh yeah,
that's an example of social proof.
Yeah,
it shows a ton of people have bought this book, and you should too. Basically,
yep.
That's what it's saying right there. In other words, so anyway, cool, good episode. We'll do the next one here shortly.